Today I'm making kiflis, which are the main traditional Christmas cookie in my family. There are several kifli recipes on the internet, but none that match my great-grandmother's recipe. So I'll be showing you how to do that today. First time on the internet, as far as I know. I have here a tablespoon of cold milk. And I'm putting 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast into that to dissolve. And as proof that this is actually an old family recipe, I can even tell you about the argument that my grandmother and my great aunt had about the proper way to make the filling when we get to that stage. Every good family recipe has to have a good family argument attached to it. And this is one of those foods that is a traditional Christmas food, and it is not meant to be healthy. You may not substitute turbinado sugar for the white sugar, and you may not try to use whole wheat flour in this recipe. It will not work. Now, it does have raisins and walnuts in the filling, so if you're concerned about the healthfulness, I think those are quite sufficiently healthy, considering that it's a Christmas cookie. The story is that my great-grandmother used to make these all the time in big batches, and she had a big crock of them in her house all the time. We've only made them at Christmas time because they're kind of a lot of work for a cookie. Alright, well, that is still kind of clumpy, but it is on its way to dissolving, so I'm going to let that sit for a minute. I have here 4 cups of flour, and this is white flour, but it is the white flour that still has the wheat germ in it. So no wheat bran, but it does have the nutrients from the wheat germ. And in this 4 cups of flour, I have another cup here in case I need it. Technically the recipe would be 5 cups, but you start with a little less. Into that I'm going to put 2 sticks of butter. And this is basically going to be a pie crust style dough, but with yeast in it. But a very flaky pastry kind of effect. And I really don't know which is the proper spelling for kifli. I have seen several spellings. I like the very simplest spelling myself, which is K-I-F-L-I. But there are lots of I's and E's that can get thrown in there, and some spellings even have P's, which is probably hearkening back to the original language. In my family, they come from Hungary, but it is entirely possible that there are other variations in other countries. I haven't really done the research on that, but often in those little countries, they all have their own variations on traditional recipes. And you want the butter to be blended in, like I said, about like for pie crust. It doesn't have to be completely worked in. You may see little bits of flour that don't have butter in them, but you want the chunks of butter to be small, maybe mostly pea-sized, just like any pastry type dough. And then in the middle of this, I'm going to put 3 egg yolks, and I've saved the egg whites for the filling for when I make that. And then the sour cream. Now this is actually technically a half batch of dough. The full batch would call for a full carton of sour cream. But a full batch of dough is a lot of dough. Last year I made the half batch, and I think it made 48 kiflis. And those were even a little on the large side. It would probably make more if I made them the proper size. But since this is a half batch, I am only putting in 1 cup of sour cream. that also goes into the middle of this flour mixture here. I think probably the fully traditional way to do it would be to do it without a bowl, and you use the flour kind of to hold the liquid in and mix it from the center. But I find it simpler to use a bowl. And that's actually even how I've seen my family demonstrate it. And then we take the yeast and the milk that's been sitting here. I'm just going to squish that a little bit because it's softened, but it's not really all homogeneous. And we want it to mix in really well with the rest of the dough. And I do get my fingers in my cooking. I will blame my Hungarian great-grandmother, even though I never actually watched her cook. I'm sure it's in my blood to get my hands in my cooking, really feel what I'm doing. I also don't really like to measure. I have to remind myself to measure things when I'm working in recipes to post so that other people know how much to use. And then just mix this all together. I probably should have used a slightly bigger bowl. And as it starts to come together and you see the dough's just getting kind of shaggy and mostly holding together, pretty much as soon as you're comfortable with how much it's holding together, you can wait until it's all one big lump. But I find it simpler to just go ahead and turn it out on the counter and start kneading it as soon as it's mostly holding together. Probably again stems back to liking to get my hands into what I'm doing so I can feel what's going on with the dough, really tell what stage it's at. I don't think this is going to need any more flour, most likely. And I'm going to work this, and then I'm going to knead it for about 5 minutes. And I'll show you when it's done what texture it's supposed to be. It's really a very nice, smooth, silky dough when it's all done. And this is a nice, smooth ball of dough, just naturally holding together. It has a little bit of a silky feel to it. I don't know how else to describe it. That's the word in the recipe, and it's really accurate. And the recipe says knead for about 5 minutes. I don't really go by time, I go by feel. But 5 minutes is a good baseline for starting out. And then this is all I'm doing with the dough today. I'm going to wrap it in saran wrap and put it in the refrigerator overnight, and then make the cookies tomorrow.